Good evening. I'm at parent conferences tonight. If you can hear my voice, stop breathing. Okay, resume. I wanted to find an article on translanguaging because I've been fascinated by it since I first heard about it at the La Cosecha conference last year. Since I don't teach anymore, I wanted to see how I could support all disciplines in using it in the classroom. The purpose of my article, A Disciplinary Perspective on Translanguaging, was to support the use of translanguaging in all core content areas. The findings are more qualitative than quantitative and are more conceptual arguments versus actual data, but the arguments support pretty much everything we've learned about translanguaging so far. The studies were done in the UK and Spain primarily. The success of translanguaging in the classroom largely depends on teacher training and teacher beliefs in regards to seeing a student's full linguistic repertoire as a resource rather than a barrier. Contrary to popular belief, MLs don't have two separate compartmentalized language systems, rather one integrated repertoire to make meaning and promote understanding. The content goals have to be tied to language goals. The translanguaging part supports understanding by letting the kids process concepts in their familiar language while still developing English, not a learn English first approach and then transition to content. Translanguaging allows MLs to be active contributors in the lesson and creates a class environment where language diversity is a normal thing. In the classroom, teachers should scaffold by planning strategic use of the home language. In the beginning of a new concept, allow MLs to problem solve and brainstorm in their home language and then transition to English towards the end of the unit or final product. There is a need for flexibility in assessing content knowledge. Many assessments, state and local, are still primarily focused on the English language rather than content mastery. The key findings were that translanguaging allows students to process concepts bilingually, giving them various entry points into content, and aren't hindered by a lack of English proficiency. Students engaged more and felt more confident when they could translanguage. It strengthens critical thinking skills, comparing, contrasting, analyzing concepts across languages, which wouldn't be possible if it were English only. Translanguaging accelerated English acquisition. Students also felt that their linguistic and cultural backgrounds were valued. Finally, teachers who embraced translanguaging were also more likely to adapt lessons, scaffold, use bilingual text, flexible note-taking, etc. The limitations of the studies were that they were done in Europe and not in US classrooms. Translanguaging depends heavily on teacher training, and standardized assessments still privilege English and don't fully capture ML's content knowledge. Translanguaging practices differed widely among the content areas, so data was difficult to quantify, and some teachers still defaulted to English-only practices due to accountability pressures. The study suggests that teachers need training in how to integrate translanguaging, incorporate multilingual resources across content areas, use flexible assessments, and that school-wide, we should involve families in valuing home language in school activities, communications, and the curriculum. In conclusion, the study acknowledges that translanguaging faces systemic barriers like teacher training, testing policies, etc., but strongly recommends shifting professional development, curriculum assessment, and policy towards approaches that view multilingualism as an asset for learning inequity. Citation.